Just trying to understand what the global setup has been. Sajid, yet another day of volatile moves coming in across the global market. We've seen one day of stability coming in, and that fared pretty well for our markets. Yet again, you have the US markets that have thrown a googly at us like our cricketers did yesterday fairly well in the game.
This googly is called the crude googly, which is coming in. It came in yesterday, and the US market, went down, and solely on the basis of the crude prices going up. That was one of the reasons why US markets were down yesterday. But today morning, you saw for India, there's some relief which is coming in from the US Treasury, where they have given a waiver of nearly 30 days for India to pick up all the crudes which are in transit or are stranded at sea, and that gives some of the domestic OMCs to get all those cheaper crude from the market, especially the Russian crude. So the IOCs, HPCL, BPCL, and the Reliance, they can fetch those things. If you just to put in perspective, the oil ministry has said that there are 25 days of crude reserves which we have, and 25 days of product reserves we have. So nearly 50 days of reserves. That's what we have there, and this buying of Russian crude can help augment the entire reserves which is there for us. So that's something which is coming up in the morning for us, and so you'll see some of the OMC stocks being active in the morning. Otherwise, the market has been pretty weak for the US. Asia is also opening weak in that sense, and we have seen the dollar spike happening, and that's impacting the gold, where gold has come down to nearly $5,000. Despite that, gold is up nearly 30% this year itself.
Absolutely. The other talking point this morning while we're talking about crude, its jet fuel prices are at a 4-year high. So despite this relaxation coming in, at least from the US, that now temporarily allows India to buy Russian crude for 1 month, this is still going to be something that you want to watch out for Interglobe Aviation. But of course, the big talking point this morning is the United States has issued a 30-day waiver allowing Indian refiners to purchase Russian oil, according to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Washington clarified the waiver only applies to cargoes already stranded at sea, meaning it will not significantly benefit Russia. At least this is the rationale coming in from the United States side. Bessent also said the US expects India to increase purchases of American oil, calling the temporary move a step to stabilize global energy supplies amid all of this escalation that we're seeing in the Western Asian region. But talking about the way the global markets have fared in terms of equity and commodity moves, let's take it across to Ashesha, who's waiting by with a roundup of just that. Ashesha, morning.
Morning, Snehi, and first up, let's start with how the U.S. markets ended yesterday in trade, and it turned out to be a weak session for U.S. markets. We had Dow Jones, which ended 1.6% in lower in trade yesterday. S&P 500 and Nasdaq also slipped into the red. In fact, Dow is headed for the worst week since December 2025. That's the kind of decline that we have seen for the week so far, and yesterday also turned out to be a very weak session for the U.S. market. Remember, we saw a sharp spike in US 10-year bond yield, which is now above that 4.1% mark. Scott Bessent has also issued a 30-day waiver allowing Indian refiners to buy Russian oil. And we also have Microsoft and some other individual stocks which were in focus yesterday. Microsoft ended nearly 1.5% higher after it said that customers can still access Anthropic products after supply chain risks the designation. So some individual stocks that were in focus within US markets yesterday. But let's also talk about Europe, and that too ended weak yesterday. We had DAX that was down 1.6%, FTSE and CAC on your screens down nearly 1.5% in trade yesterday. Asia today has opened weak. We have Nikkei, which is down over 1%. Of course, it has recovered from the lowest point of the day. That's Asian markets for you on your screens. Nikkei up 0.4%. Hang Seng is now up 1%. And Shanghai too has recovered from the lowest point of the day, flat, but despite that, managing to hold on to some amount of gains in today's trading session. But commodities, that's where the action has been over the last few trading sessions. Let's talk about the oil market, and that continues to surge. Precious metals have seen some bit of profit booking over the last few trading sessions. That's Brent for you at about $84 per barrel, WTI crude at about $79 per barrel. We have seen a steady uptick over the last few trading sessions, and that continued yesterday as well. Let's also talk about some important commentary that has come in from global leaders, especially on the geopolitical front. And first up, Donald Trump on the conflict in US and Iran, where Donald Trump, in fact, Islamic Republic of Iran's foreign minister has said that they are long prepared for this war. Iran's powerful armed forces are ready. They negotiated with US twice, but Iran attacked them in the middle of the war. Iran meanwhile has said that they are currently having no intention to close the Strait of Hormuz, and Donald Trump meanwhile has said that they are seeking further action to reduce pressure on oil. They will want to finish Iran first, but Cuba is a question of time. So some important commentary that has come in from US President as well. In fact, let's go across and listen in to what Donald Trump had to say.
Their Navy is gone. 24 ships in 3 days. That's a lot of ships. Their anti-aircraft weapons are gone. So they have no air force. They have no air defense. All of their airplanes are gone. Their communications are gone. Missiles are gone. Launches are gone. About 60% and 64% respectively. Other than that, they're doing quite well. I said, what's left? But they're tough, and they want to fight. And they're calling, they're saying, how do we make a deal? I said, you're being a little bit late, and we want to fight now more than they do.